Every night, someone has to stay behind. After the doors lock, after everyone goes home, one person walks the dark. A mall, a hospital, a prison, a forest, a building that should have no power. 5 guards, 5 locations, 5 shifts that should have been normal. None of them were. Something was already inside waiting, patient, watching, and it had been there a very long time. These are their stories. 5 true security guard incidents that should not exist. Don't watch this alone. I worked security at Rivergate Mall in Southern Alabama back in 2019. If you've ever been inside a mall after closing time, you already know how wrong it feels. During the day, Rivergate was loud and alive. Families walking around, teenagers hanging out near the food court, music echoing through the halls. But after midnight, it felt like the building forgot people ever existed. Most stores shut down permanently years earlier. Half the mall was empty storefronts covered by metal gates and dusty advertisements from another decade. Our night shift had only 2 guards. One watched cameras, the other walked patrol. That night, patrol was mine. My shift started at 11 p.m. By midnight, the cleaning crew left, lights dimmed automatically, and the massive building became completely silent except for air vents humming overhead. Before leaving, my supervisor Carl gave me the same warning he gave every new guard. Don't cut through the old West Wing. I asked why. He shrugged. Cameras don't work right there. That sounded normal enough. Old building, broken equipment. Still, something about the way he avoided eye contact stuck with me. Around 1:20 a.m., I started my first full patrol. Flashlight in one hand, radio clipped to my vest, keys rattling every step. Walking inside a closed mall is strange because sound travels forever. Your footsteps echo. Every movement feels louder than it should. I passed the dark food court first. Chairs stacked upside down. Old soda machines glowing faint blue. Then the escalators, shut down but still making occasional clicking noises like metal cooling. Everything normal, until I reached the hallway leading toward the West Wing. Even before turning the corner, I noticed something. Light. A faint glow moving across the floor, like someone walking with a flashlight. I stopped immediately. Nobody should have been inside. All entrances were locked. I pressed my radio. Control, you got anyone scheduled maintenance tonight? Static answered first. Then my partner Dave replied. Negative, just you and me. I stared down the hallway again. The moving light disappeared. I told myself maybe it came from outside traffic through the glass doors. Still, I walked toward it. The West Wing felt colder than the rest of the mall. Half the ceiling lights didn't work. Store signs hung crooked. Dust covered everything. My flashlight beam stretched across empty storefront windows. Then I heard footsteps. Not echoes. Actual footsteps. Ahead of me. Slow. Walking away. Security, I called out. Mall's closed. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence followed. I turned the corner. Nothing there. Just closed stores and darkness. I almost laughed at myself. Until my radio crackled again. Dave's voice sounded confused. You just passed camera 12? No, I said. I'm West Wing. Long pause. Then Dave said quietly. Then who just walked past the food court? My stomach tightened. That's impossible. I'm looking at it right now, he said. Guy in security uniform. Every hair on my arm stood up. Because I was the only guard walking patrol. Describe him, I said. Dave hesitated. Looks like you. Cold spread through my chest. I turned slowly, scanning the empty hallway behind me. Nothing. Stop messing around, I said. I'm not, Dave replied. He just went toward West Wing. Toward me. At that exact moment, my flashlight flickered. Once. Twice. Then the lights overhead shut off completely. The entire corridor went dark. Only emergency exit lights remained glowing red at the far end. And in that dim red light, I saw someone standing about 30 feet away. Security uniform. Same vest. Same posture. Facing me, but completely still. I raised my flashlight. Hey, no response. The figure didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just stood there. Then slowly, it started walking toward me. Not running. Not aggressive. Just calm steps. My radio burst with Dave shouting, "Dude, leave that hallway right now." I backed up instinctively. The figure kept coming. And that's when I noticed something wrong. The face. I couldn't see features. Only darkness where the face should have been. Like shadow swallowed it. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. I turned and walked fast back toward the main corridor. Behind me, footsteps matched mine perfectly. Same rhythm, same pace. I stopped suddenly. The footsteps stopped instantly too. I turned around. The hallway was empty again. No figure, no movement, just silence. Breathing hard, I hurried back toward the food court. When I reached the camera office, Dave looked shaken. He replayed footage, and I watched something I still can't explain. Camera 12 showed me walking patrol, but 30 seconds later, another guard walked into frame behind me. Same height, same uniform, following at a distance. Face completely obscured by shadow. Then the recording glitched. Static filled the screen. When video returned, both of us were gone. Mall management checked recordings the next day. Files corrupted. West Wing cameras permanently disabled after that. Carl finally told me the story they never mentioned during hiring. Years earlier, a security guard named Marcus worked night patrol alone. He disappeared during shift. No forced exits. No alarms triggered. Car still in parking lot. Last camera footage showed him entering the West Wing, walking, then stopping suddenly, like someone called his name. After that, nothing. They never found him. I quit 2 weeks later. But sometimes late at night, when I drive past Rivergate Mall, I see movement inside the dark hallway windows. A flashlight beam moving slowly, like someone still walking patrol, still doing his job, and waiting for the next guard to take the West Wing route. Story 2, the hospital basement watch, Alabama night security guard incident. Extended ultra-disturbing version narration ready. I worked hospital security in a small Alabama town called Millhaven. If you look it up on a map, you probably won't even notice it. One hospital, 2 traffic lights, miles of pine forest surrounding everything. Millhaven Regional Medical Center wasn't big, but it stayed busy enough. Car accidents from rural highways, late-night emergencies, elderly patients from nearby towns. During the day, the place felt normal. But night shift security inside a hospital is different from anywhere else. Because hospitals never truly sleep. Machines breathe for people. Monitors beep in empty rooms. Elevators move when nobody presses buttons. And sometimes, people walk the halls who aren't supposed to be there. My shift started at midnight. From 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., I was the only roaming guard in the building. One dispatcher watched cameras downstairs. Everyone else stayed locked inside departments. Before my first overnight shift, an older guard named Leonard trained me. Leonard had worked there almost 15 years. Quiet guy, former sheriff's deputy. Around 2 a.m. during training, he stopped near an elevator that led to the basement level. He pressed the button, then immediately canceled it. Then he looked at me and said something strange. Rule number 1 down here. I waited. If the basement calls the elevator by itself, he paused. Don't answer it. I laughed. He didn't. That should have been my warning. The basement level, most hospitals have restricted areas patients never see. Millhaven's basement held storage rooms, old surgical equipment, maintenance tunnels, and the morgue. Security patrol required checking it once every 2 hours. Nobody liked doing it. Even staff avoided going down there alone. The lighting was older, long fluorescent strips that flickered before turning fully on. Concrete walls, cold air, and hallways that carried sound way too far. My 3rd week working nights, Leonard retired. After that, I handled patrol alone. The incident happened around 3:07 a.m. That time matters because nearly every strange report logged in hospital security happened between 3 o'clock and 3:30 a.m. They call it the quiet hour. When medication cycles slow, visitors are gone, and exhaustion hits everyone at once. I took the elevator down like normal. Doors opened slowly. The basement smelled faintly metallic. Not rot, just cold air and cleaning chemicals. I started my patrol checklist. Storage corridor clear. Laundry access locked. Maintenance doors secured. Everything normal, until I reached the morgue hallway. That corridor always felt wrong. Lights dimmer, temperature colder, and the hum from refrigeration units vibrating through the floor. Halfway down the hall, I heard something, a metal sound, like a drawer sliding shut. I froze. Only medical staff had access to morgue units at night. I grabbed my radio. Control, anyone scheduled downstairs? Dispatcher answered immediately. Negative. No movement logged. My flashlight beam shook slightly as I walked forward. The morgue door stood partially open. It was never left open. Ever. I pushed it slowly. Inside, stainless steel drawers lined the wall. Everything looked still, until I noticed one drawer wasn't fully closed. It stuck out maybe 3 inches. I swallowed hard. Protocol said I wasn't supposed to touch anything medical related, so I turned to leave. That's when the drawer slid shut behind me. On its own, loud metal slam. I spun around. Nobody there. My heart started racing now. I backed toward the door and heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Slow, dragging steps. Someone walking toward the morgue. Relief hit me first. Probably staff. Security, I called out. The footsteps stopped instantly, then continued again. Closer, but something sounded wrong. One footstep normally, the other dragged across the floor. Like injury, the figure appeared in the doorway. Hospital gown, tall man, head tilted slightly downward. At first I thought it was a confused patient who wandered off a floor. That happens sometimes. "Sir," I said calmly, "you can't be down here." No response. He stepped into the room, bare feet against cold tile. And that's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. His wristband, red tag, deceased identification band. My brain refused to process it. Patients with red bands weren't walking anywhere. I stepped backward. "Sir, stop right there." He lifted his head slowly. His eyes looked unfocused, cloudy, like someone waking from deep sleep. Then he spoke, voice dry, strained. "Where did everyone go?" My throat tightened. Training told me this was impossible. Fear told me to run. I grabbed my radio again. "Control I need." Static exploded through it. Every light in the morgue flickered. The man took another step closer. Slow, confused, like he didn't understand where he was. Then something worse happened. Behind him, another drawer slid open. Then another. Metal scraping echoed through the room. My flashlight beam shook across the wall. 3 drawers now partially open. Cold air pouring out. The man turned his head toward them, like he heard something calling him, and whispered, "They're waking up." That was enough. I rushed past him into the hallway. My boots echoed loudly as adrenaline took over. Behind me, multiple dragging footsteps followed. Not one, several. I didn't look back. I ran straight toward the elevator, pressed the button repeatedly. Doors took forever. The footsteps got closer. Slow, uneven approaching. Then a voice behind me spoke calmly. Not confused anymore. Clear. "You shouldn't leave us alone down here." Elevator doors opened. I jumped inside and slammed the button. As the doors closed, I finally looked back. 3 figures stood at the end of the hallway. Hospital gowns. Motionless. Watching. Doors shut. Elevator rose. And suddenly everything went silent again. What security found control said cameras never showed anyone leaving morgue storage. Only me running. Alone. Medical staff checked records later that morning. 3 bodies had arrived overnight from a highway accident. All stored before midnight. All confirmed deceased. But one detail still bothers me. Drawer logs showed something impossible. At 3:07 a.m., 3 morgue units registered internal pressure movement. From inside, I transferred departments a month later. Couldn't handle basement patrol anymore. But former coworkers still message me sometimes. Because guards who work nights there report the same thing. Around 3 a.m., the elevator occasionally opens at the basement level, even when nobody calls it. And security cameras show figures standing just outside the doors, waiting, like they expect someone to come back down. Story 3, Cell Block C after lockdown, Alabama Correctional Facility. Night security guard incident, ultra disturbing narration ready. Before mall security, before hospital patrol. I worked night security at a correctional facility outside Bruton, Alabama. It wasn't a maximum security prison. Officially, it was classified as a state holding and transfer unit. Inmates stayed there temporarily before moving elsewhere. But anyone who worked nights knew something important. Temporary facilities are worse. People there are angry, uncertain, waiting. A night shift inside a prison changes the way silence feels. My shift ran from 11:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. After midnight, the entire facility entered lockdown. Cells secured, lights dimmed, movement restricted. Only 2 guards walked patrol across 3 housing blocks. I covered Cell Block C. Nobody liked that assignment. Not because inmates caused trouble, but because Block C used to be the oldest part of the prison, built in the early 1970s before expansions were added. Half the cameras were newer, half weren't, and some areas never upgraded at all. During my first week, Sergeant Wilkes gave me quiet advice while handing over keys. "If you hear talking after count clears," he said, "check the doors, not the voices." I asked what that meant. He just said, "You'll understand." Lockdown hour around 2:45 a.m., prison energy changes. Even inmates who stay awake usually settle down. You hear occasional coughing, metal beds shifting, maybe someone whispering through vents. That night started normal. I completed inmate count. Every cell accounted for. All doors locked electronically. System confirmed secure. I walked the tier slowly, flashlight sweeping bars. Most inmates asleep, some staring silently like they always do when guards pass. Then I reached the far end of Block C. That's when I heard it. Conversation. 2 voices. Low, casual talking, coming from the isolation wing hallway. My first thought was inmates communicating between cells. Happens all the time. But something felt off immediately. Isolation cells were empty that week, completely unused. I checked my tablet again. Confirmed. 0 occupants. Still, voices continued. One laughing quietly, the other speaking too softly to understand. I stepped toward the isolation corridor. Lights that were dimmer, older fixtures buzzing overhead. The moment my boots crossed into that hallway, the talking stopped. Instantly, like someone hit mute. I stood still, waiting. Nothing, just ventilation humming. I walked past each empty cell slowly. Doors locked, observation windows dark. Every room empty exactly like records showed. I was about to leave when a voice spoke directly behind me. "You missed one." I spun around fast. Nobody there. Hallway empty. My pulse jumped hard now. "Who's there?" I called. No response. Then metal clanged somewhere deeper inside isolation. One of the unused cell doors rattled violently. I backed toward the control panel. Check lock status. Still secured. Every door green. No overrides triggered. Then I heard footsteps. Inside the row. Walking between cells. Impossible. Access required 2 locked gates. Both still closed behind me. My radio crackled suddenly. Control asked, "Unit C, why are you standing still?" I frowned. "What? You've been there 5 minutes." I looked up at the hallway clock. I'd only walked in seconds ago, but timestamp showed 2:58 a.m., nearly 10 minutes missing. Cold unease settled in my chest. "I'm clearing isolation," I said quickly. Then movement caught my eye. At the very last cell window, someone stood inside. A silhouette, tall, facing me. I froze. That cell was empty. I personally verified earlier. My flashlight beam shook as I stepped closer. The figure didn't move, just stood there, watching. I reached the window, shined light inside. The room was empty. Concrete bed, steel toilet, nothing else. I stepped back slowly, and the figure appeared again, this time reflected in the glass beside me, standing directly behind my shoulder. I turned instantly. Nothing. My breathing became loud inside my ears. Then all isolation lights shut off. Complete darkness swallowed the hallway. Emergency lights kicked in seconds later. Red glow filled the corridor. And that's when I heard multiple voices, whispering, from every cell. Not yelling, not threatening, just murmuring conversations overlapping each other, like dozens of inmates talking at once. Except isolation was empty. My radio screamed with static. Then Control shouted, "Who else is in Block C with you?" "I'm alone." I yelled back. "No, you're not," Control replied. "There are heat signatures all over your tier." My blood ran cold. I started backing toward the exit gate. Behind me, footsteps followed. Many footsteps, barely audible, matching my pace. Slow, patient, like a crowd walking just out of sight. Then one voice spoke clearly beside my ear. "You locked us in." I ran. Professional training disappeared completely. I rushed through the security gate and slammed it shut. The whispers stopped instantly, like they couldn't cross the threshold. Breathing hard, I reached main control. Operators looked pale. They replayed thermal camera footage, and what I saw made my stomach drop. On infrared cameras, dozens of human-shaped heat outlines moved through isolation corridor around me. Walking, standing near cells, surrounding my position. But regular cameras showed nothing. Just me, alone. Administration reviewed old incident files the next day. Turns out Block C isolation wing closed temporarily years earlier after a riot transfer incident. Several inmates died during overnight confinement waiting for medical evacuation. Official reports blamed delays, but guards working nights after were reported hearing conversations from empty cells, footsteps during lockdown, counts changing briefly before correcting themselves. I transferred facilities 3 months later. Couldn't shake the feeling of being watched during patrol, but one thing still stays with me. During my final shift, after lockdown completed, I checked isolation one last time, every cell empty, silent. As I turned to leave, a voice calmly said from behind a locked door, "Count us again." The logging site watchtower, rural Alabama forest security guard incident, extremely disturbing narration ready. Before people started quitting that contract, the Pine Hollow logging site used to run night security year-round. It sat deep in southern Alabama forest land, almost 40 minutes outside the nearest town. No neighborhoods, no streetlights, just miles of pine trees and dirt access roads. The company hired private security because expensive logging equipment kept getting vandalized. Or at least, that's what we were told. My job sounded simple. Stay overnight, watch equipment yards, report trespassers, one guard per shift. Just one. The site had a small elevated watchtower trailer overlooking the clearing where machines were parked. Bulldozers, loaders, fuel tanks, and stacked timber piles. After sunset, the forest became completely black. Not city dark, real dark, the kind where your flashlight feels too small. My shift started at 10 p.m. The day guard handed me keys and said something strange before leaving. "If you hear knocking from the tree line, don't answer it." I laughed. He didn't. That should have told me enough. The first few hours night security in the woods messes with your head. Wind moves branches that look like people walking. Animals trigger motion sensors constantly. Coyotes, deer, wild hogs sometimes. Around midnight, everything felt normal. Generator humming. Crickets loud enough to fill the silence. Camera monitors glowing inside the tower. At 1:18 a.m., motion alarm triggered on camera 6. North tree line. I checked the monitor. Nothing visible. Probably animals. I reset the alert. 2 minutes later, another alarm. Same location. This time I zoomed in. The camera struggled in low light, but I noticed movement between trees. Tall shape. Standing upright. Not moving like an animal. Too still. I grabbed binoculars and looked toward the forest edge. At first I saw nothing. Then something shifted slightly behind a pine trunk. Someone was standing there, watching the site. I radioed dispatch. Possible trespasser north perimeter. No response. Static only. Cell service barely worked out there. So protocol said I had to investigate. I grabbed my flashlight and walked down from the tower. The moment I stepped onto the dirt clearing, the forest noise stopped. No insects. No wind. Just silence. That silence felt wrong immediately. I walked toward the tree line slowly. Security. I called. No answer. My flashlight beam moved across trunks and brush. Empty. Then I noticed footprints in the dirt road. Bare feet. Large ones. Leading out of the forest toward the equipment yard. My chest tightened. Someone had already been inside. I turned quickly back toward the machines and froze. One of the loaders had moved. Its bucket slightly raised. I knew for a fact it had been lowered earlier. Engines were off. Keys locked away. Nobody should have touched it. Then something metallic echoed behind me. A slow, deliberate knock. From inside the forest. 3 taps against wood. Knock, knock, knock. Exactly like someone hitting a tree with their hand. I turned my flashlight toward the sound. Nothing visible. Then another knock came from farther left. Closer. Then another behind me. Different directions. My breathing sped up. It sounded like multiple people moving through trees, signaling each other. I backed toward the tower ladder. That's when I heard footsteps running. Fast. Circling through brush. But I couldn't see anyone. Branches snapped. Leaves crushed. Something moving just outside the light. I climbed back into the tower quickly and locked the door. Heart pounding now. Camera monitors flickered. Every perimeter camera activated motion alerts simultaneously. All sides of the clearing. Like the forest itself was moving. I switched feeds rapidly. Camera 2. Nothing. Camera 4. Nothing. Camera 6. My stomach dropped. Figures stood along the tree line. Several of them. Tall shapes between trees. Perfectly still. Too many to count clearly. I leaned closer to the screen and realized something worse. They weren't approaching. They were facing the tower, watching me. The generator lights suddenly dimmed. Power fluctuated. Outside, knocking started again. But now it came from below the tower, directly underneath me. Slow tapping against metal stairs. Someone climbing. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. I grabbed my radio again. Still static. The steps reached halfway up, then stopped. Silence returned. I held my breath. Then a voice came from outside the door. Calm, almost curious. You're not the first guard. Every muscle in my body locked. The voice sounded human, but wrong somehow. Flat, like repeating words learned from someone else. I didn't answer. The voice continued softly. They always come down when we knock. My hands shook around the flashlight. Outside, something dragged slowly across the tower wall. Long scratching sound, circling me. Then multiple footsteps moved below again. More than one person now, whispering faintly. I looked back at monitors. The tree line was empty, all figures gone. But camera one, pointed at the tower stairs, showed movement. Several shapes standing directly beneath me. Too close for the camera angle to fully capture. Just parts of bodies entering frame. Bare shoulders, arms, heads tilted upward, watching. Then the tower lights shut off completely. Generator died. Total darkness swallowed everything. Only moonlight through windows remained. Outside the door, breathing. Multiple people breathing. Slow, patient, waiting. Then the handle moved. Locked. It rattled gently. Once, twice, then stopped. A whisper came through the thin metal door. You'll come down eventually. I stayed frozen for what felt like hours. Eventually, sunrise light reached the trees. Bird sounds returned. Forest normal again. When the day crew arrived, everything looked untouched. No footprints except mine. No signs of trespassers. But maintenance checked the tower later and found something that made the company cancel overnight security permanently. Imprints, dozens of them, covering the outside walls of the tower. All at different heights. All barefoot impressions in the dirt below, like a group had surrounded it all night. Local workers later told me something nobody mentioned during hiring. That land used to hold an abandoned logging camp decades earlier. Several workers disappeared after getting lost in the woods during night operations. Search teams never found them. People around Pine Hollow say the forest doesn't like lights after midnight. And sometimes, when someone watches the machines too long, the woods start watching back. I never worked forest security again, because even now, if I'm driving rural highways late at night and past dark tree lines, I sometimes see shapes standing between trunks, perfectly still, waiting for someone to notice them. Final story, the last shift at Blackwood Industrial Park, Alabama security guard incident. Final story, extremely disturbing, ending narration ready. By the time I took the Blackwood Industrial Park contract, I already had years of night security experience. Malls, hospitals, warehouses, even remote sites. I thought I understood fear. I was wrong. Blackwood sat outside a declining Alabama manufacturing town about 20 minutes north of Mobile. The place used to employ thousands. By 2022, most buildings were abandoned. Only 3 warehouses still operated. The rest stayed dark. Empty parking lots, broken office buildings, miles of unused loading docks. Security existed mostly to prevent trespassing. Night shift required one roaming guard driving patrol across the entire property. That guard was me. My shift began at 11 p.m. The company's supervisor gave orientation quickly. Maps, radio channel, patrol route. Then he added one final instruction while handing me keys. If Building 7 lights turn on, call it in. I asked why. He answered immediately, because nobody has power connected there. That stuck with me. The property after midnight industrial parks feel unsettling at night because everything is built for activity. But nothing moves. Wind pushes loose metal panels. Chains hit fences. Old signs creak slowly. Around 1:30 a.m., patrol was routine. Warehouses secure. Fuel gates locked. Delivery yard empty. Fog rolled across parts of the property, low and thick from nearby wetlands. Headlights barely cut through it. That's when my dashboard radio crackled. Static, then silence again. Dispatch confirmed signal interference sometimes happened near Building 7, which unfortunately sat at the far edge of the property, completely isolated. I almost skipped it, but patrol logs required visual confirmation, so I drove toward it. The road narrowed between abandoned factories, windows broken, paint peeling, entire buildings swallowed by darkness. As I rounded the final corner, I immediately saw something wrong. Lights were on. Inside Building 7, soft yellow glow shining through dusty windows. My stomach tightened instantly. Supervisor's warning came back to me. No electricity connected, yet lights burned inside. I parked about 50 yards away, engine idling, watching. No movement visible. Still, someone could have broken in using generators. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out. The air felt colder near that building, unnaturally quiet. Even insects seemed gone. The front entrance door stood slightly open, moving slowly with the wind. I announced loudly, "Security." No answer. I pushed the door wider. Inside smelled old, dust and rust, but the lights overhead flickered weakly like power struggled to stay alive. The warehouse interior was massive, empty production floor, old conveyor systems abandoned mid-installation. My footsteps echoed endlessly. Then I noticed something strange. Fresh footprints in dust, many of them, leading deeper inside. Bare footprints, different sizes, adults, maybe children too, all moving toward the center of the building. My pulse started racing. Trespassers shouldn't be barefoot, and definitely not that many. I followed cautiously. The deeper I walked, the quieter everything became, until I heard voices, low murmuring, dozens of people talking softly, coming from ahead, like a crowd gathering. I switched off my flashlight instinctively. The glow from overhead lights guided me forward. Then I saw them, people standing across the factory floor, at least 20 figures, facing away from me, perfectly still. My brain tried to process it. Homeless group maybe. Trespassers gathering overnight. Security, I called carefully. Every voice stopped at once. Silence fell instantly. Then, slowly, all of them turned toward me together. And something felt deeply wrong. Their movements were synchronized. Too perfect. Like mirrors copying each other. I raised my flashlight. Faces came into view. Pale. Expressionless. Clothes outdated. Some looked decades old. Work uniforms. Factory badges hanging from necks covered in dust. None of them blinked. One man stepped forward. Older worker uniform. Oil-stained shirt. He spoke calmly. "You're early." My throat tightened. "What is this place?" I asked. He looked around the empty warehouse. Confused. "This is shift change." Behind him, others nodded slowly. Murmuring returned, like they believed work was about to start. I backed away slightly. Something clicked in my memory. During orientation, someone mentioned an explosion years ago. Factory shut down. Fatal overnight accident. Multiple workers killed during late shift maintenance. Building abandoned afterward. The man tilted his head toward me. "You replacing the last guard?" Cold fear spread through my chest. "What guard?" He smiled faintly. "The one who stayed." Lights overhead flickered violently. Suddenly, every figure began walking. Not toward exits. Toward me. Slow steps echoing together. My survival instinct finally kicked in. I turned and ran. Footsteps followed behind. Dozens of them, but strangely calm. Not chasing, just walking, like they knew I couldn't leave. I burst through the entrance door into night air. Jumped into the patrol truck. Locked doors immediately, breathing uncontrollably. Inside the warehouse, all lights shut off at once. Dark again, like nothing happened. I drove straight back to the security office. Reported everything. Management arrived before sunrise. Police checked Building 7. No power source. No footprints inside except mine. But maintenance discovered something buried under dust near the center floor. An old security badge. Previous night guard. Missing employee from 6 months earlier. Last patrol log entry. Building 7 inspection. Lights observed inside. He never clocked out. Contract security quietly ended overnight patrols after that. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. 2 weeks after quitting, I drove past Blackwood during a late trip. Just curiosity. The industrial park looked completely dark, except for one building, Building 7. Lights glowing softly through windows again, and standing near the entrance. I swear I saw a security guard silhouette, flashlight in hand, walking inside to start patrol, like every guard eventually does, taking the next shift.